Many have heard about the Dyatlov Group demise, because this tragedy is one of the most mysterious in history. Although it occurred many decades ago, it seems that its mystery is finally solved. Who was responsible for their death? The locals, the military, UFOs, the elements, or something else? You're about to find out. This is Infinity, and in this episode, I'll tell you about the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident. The hike by a group of tourists led by Igor Dyatlov and assigned to the Ural State Technical University Sports Club was named for the 21st Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. As part of the hike, participants had to ski 300 kilometers in the north of the Sverdlovsk Oblast, as well as make ascents to 2 peaks. All the hikers were members of the hiking club of the university and knew each other well. 6 students, 3 graduates, and an instructor of the camping site. Igor Dyatlov, a 5th-year student, and 9 people under his leadership set out on a ski trip from Sverdlovsk at the end of January 1959. Despite the difficulty of the hike, all the participants were experienced and prepared for the difficulties, so there should have been no problems. But the first problem occurred early in the route. Yuri Yudin caught a cold on the way and dropped out of the group, leaving the route. He must have had a guardian angel because he was the only member of the Dyatlov Group who didn't die that unfortunate winter. Most of the hike of the Dyatlov Group passed through places inhabited by the Mansi people, who settled on the slopes of the Ural Mountains. It's known that the group reached the last stop at Kholat-Sakil Mount without any problems. This is evidenced by diary entries and photos in which the hike looks quite mundane if you do not pay attention to the terrible weather. The hikers began their ascent to Kholat-Sakil quite late, so they set up their tent at dusk, as evidenced by the last photos. According to their diary entries, the group made its last stop on February 1, 1959. Based on this, the tragedy occurred on February 2nd. According to the plan, on February 12th, the hikers should have reached Vizay village, the final point of the route, and sent a telegram to the sports club of the university. On February 15th, they should have returned to Sverdlovsk, the starting point. However, the hikers did not return at the appointed time. When the hikers did not appear for a long time, the members of the Tourist Section Bureau started to panic and organized a search. Dyatlov did not give his route book, so no one knew the exact route the hikers had chosen. Fortunately, thanks to the sister of one of the hikers, the route was restored. Not the investigators and professional teachers, but students and members of the sports club were the first to go in search of the route. The search took a long time, and it was not until February 25th that the searchers came to the very pass and came across the tent, the photo of which became one of the symbols of that tragedy. The tent, empty and cut open, was immediately identified. There were no hikers inside, so the search continued, and soon the searchers began to find the bodies of hikers in a variety of locations. Because of the snowy mountainous terrain, they were not able to find all the hikers at once. Some of them were found only in May, when the snow on the mountain began to melt, exposing the bodies. All the hikers had several factors in common. They were all far away from the tent and all had injuries of varying severity. But what happened to the group? Why were the bodies of the hikers in different places, and what or who caused their death? There are many theories on this subject. It's estimated that in total there are about 75 theories concerning the Dyatlov Group's demise. Let's look at some of them, and most importantly, let's pay attention to the version that most likely fully reveals the mysterious incident. I've already told you a little about the Mansi, the local people who live on the slopes of the Ural Mountains. According to one version, it was the Mansi who were responsible for the death of the Dyatlov Group. This version was even considered one of the first. It's believed that the local Mansi are quite contradictory people. On the one hand, they're friendly towards tourists, give them shelter, and help the lost people. On the other hand, they're very zealous of the sacred land. It's believed that Kholat-Sakil Mount is sacred to the Mansi, and that's why they decided to kill the hikers who dared to climb it and set up camp here. Though it sounds good, this version has been disproved. The Mansi are far from evil people, and in addition, the place where the group died is considered by the Mansi to be unsuitable for hunting and reindeer herding in wintertime, so there simply couldn't have been any locals there. One of the most unusual theories was offered by Alexei Rakitin. In his opinion, several members of the Dyatlov Group were undercover KGB agents. They were supposed to pass important disinformation regarding Soviet nuclear technology to foreign agents disguised as another hiking group. But they revealed the plan or inadvertently revealed the disguise. The agents realized that the only solution to not declassify themselves was to get rid of the Dyatlov Group. The easiest way to do this was with the cold. So they attacked the tent, stripped the students, and sent the barefoot hikers out into the cold. The guys tried to resist. This is explained by the massive injuries. This version has not been proven, but many retired military officers from Soviet intelligence in those days claimed that in the 1950s, Western intelligence services were indeed interested in the secrets of the Ural industry. The third version is partially related to the previous one. According to it, the hikers were also killed, but not by foreign agents, but by the military. Perhaps they did it intentionally so as not to leave witnesses to the testing of a secret weapon. Or perhaps the hikers became victims of the weapon itself. Theorists put forward a version that the Dyatlov Group was struck by a new type of rocket. This theory is supported by testimony of a group of searchers and the Manzi people living nearby who claim to have observed appearing luminous objects in the sky. It's believed that the rocket hit, or exposure to some chemical elements may have caused a hasty escape of the hikers from the tent, because, according to experts, the tent was opened from the inside, which means that the guys left it in a panic and hurried. Perhaps they were frightened by the noise or glow, and when they got out, they were exposed to the weapon itself. This is indicated by the reddish hue of the skin, as well as internal injuries and bleeding of the dead people. When authorities learned about the incident, a version was coined that the hikers had died in extreme natural conditions. It sounds far-fetched, but the version is supported by the curious testimony of a radio operator who was working near Dyatlov Pass at the time. According to him, on the night of the tragedy, strange conversations in encrypted language were heard on the radio. Coincidence or not, but the day after the tragedy, the radio operator was told to stop listening on this wave. Of course, we can't go without the UFO version. Flying saucers and various extraterrestrial objects are in general often involved in various mysterious incidents. But in this case, UFOs may well prove to be a valid explanation. According to this theory, the group members saw glowing orbs in the sky, hidden behind the mountainside. Local residents and Ural pathfinders have also told about these orbs. UFOs may also be evidenced by the last frame on the camera tape of one of the group members. The frame number 33 by Georgy Krivonochenko showed some objects shining in the middle of the mist. Given that the night of the tragedy was very dark and that there were no powerful lights around, it's not surprising that hardly anything is visible in the frame. But could this be the same UFO that decided to eliminate the group so the hikers wouldn't blab anything? Swiss scientists simulated conditions typical of the area where the hikers were camping. It turned out that the cause of the catastrophe was most likely an unusual mechanism of snow slab collapse, which had formed from snow accumulated under the influence of the wind right above the tent. That's why the guys hurriedly opened the tent from the inside, so they would not be completely crushed. The avalanche can explain why the injuries were different. Some were severely damaged, while others were practically left untouched. The hikers got out of the tent and scattered in different directions. When everything calmed down, they tried to go back, but they couldn't. They'd run too far away, and the visibility was very poor. In addition, the temperature was extremely low. Some tried to go back to the tent, but they never made it there and froze to death. Someone decided to wait out the night on a slope and built a fire, but it wasn't enough. It was freezing, and hikers began to freeze, and in an attempt to get warm, they literally put their hands into the fire. Hence the burns. As to the fact that some hikers were undressed, there are two versions. Either they got out of the tent looking like that, or they undressed in the cold because in the last stage of hypothermia, an agony begins, a human's body stops functioning normally, and a person begins to think that they're hot, even though there's minus 40 degrees frost outside. However, there will never be a definitive version. We will never know what exactly happened on the mountain pass that awful night, and why the guys were gone. That's all, guys. What, in your opinion, actually caused the Dyatlov Group's demise? Share your theories and thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.